Now, we've got our own panel here, as we did promise, as Ijoma did promise at the start of the show. We have our own panel here who will do justice to the president's speech, among others. So, do we start?
Yes,
You
yes.
want to
Let's
start?
kick off. Yes, indeed.
Do we start with the lady first?
Of course, we start with the lady. Lady, don't start.
I have to ask because it's you, so I have to ask. All right, we're being joined, of course, seated to my immediate right is Defense Intelligence and Security Analyst Tanwa Ashiru. Thank you so much for being with us. And seated to her right is Professor Bola Okune, who is the chairman of the Anchor Borrowers Program in Ogun State. He's also a professor of agriculture at the University of Agriculture in Abeokuta. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And sitting to Ijoma's left now, we have Mr. Malaki Igwilo, who is a lecturer.
Doctor.
Sorry?
It's a doctor. Dr. Malaki.
Dr. Malaki Igwilo, who is a lecturer of philosophy at the Bells University. Thank you very much for joining us. And, of course, to his left is Mr. Emmanuel Dania, National Chairman of the Alliance for New Nigeria. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Welcome all. A lot has already been said from morning to now. So maybe we'll just get into it. The president's speech. This time, 25 minutes. He spent quite a bit of time touching on some key things. What's been trending, I hate to use that word, but I have no choice. What's been trending is what he said about the attention that is now to be paid to the abuse of technology, especially online technology, cybercrime, and hate speech. I don't know who wants to kick off with that. Would you like to kick off with that? Yes.
You know, the president is bothered about abuse of technology. And I think that he's trying to tell us that right now we'll be watching what you are saying on Facebook or on Instagram or what have you. So we are in for another round of dictatorial watching of everything we do.
But then doesn't that speak to, I'm sorry to cut in, but doesn't that speak to also not the fact that people should not speak, but that they should not use the freedom to speak to compromise national security?
I think his words were, and you don't infringe on the rights of
others.
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
So that's, again, who is to determine the limits? That's my concern. Now, if I'm discussing a particular incident that happened on my street, at what point will I say I have to stop to avoid endangering national security? So that's my concern. Who is to say the limit?
So what was your problem? Was it because a number of people have picked up on some of the wording in the broadcast today, you know, talking about not tolerating certain things, and it will be decisively dealt with, etc.
Exactly.
Was it the wording that was the problem, or the spirit behind what he's trying to say?
Both the wording and the spirit. Because from my experience in this country, we know that our law enforcement agencies, once you give them a small nudge, they will overdo things. And here we come. If they now start monitoring what we do on Facebook and Instagram and what have you, we are in soup.
Now, I want to ask you, you're a security expert, and this also speaks to security, national security. Now, this is not a problem that is unique to Nigeria. People are dealing with abuse of technology, and it's used for hate speech and other things in other climes. And we've seen manifestations of that in mass shootings and so on, targeted at particular groups. So are we way out of line? Is the president way out of line here in your view?
No, not at all. I mean, he has recognized the next level of threats that we face globally, which is fake news. The ability for me to generate something and start, creating animosity or anger that would then force people to come out and start attacking each other and so on and so forth. So he has identified that, and it is a threat. Now, that being said, same thing with Yahoo, and cybercrime. What we're seeing on the law enforcement side is that our younger generation they understand how to use these tools, and they have gone far ahead. And our law enforcement hasn't quite kept up. And in typical Nigerian fashion, we just come out and say, you know what, we stop it, we're stopping it, we're abolishing it. And instead of actually trying to grow up and trying to measure up and trying to upskill our personnel so that they can start tackling these threats properly.
Prof, what I wanted to ask was for you to take a look back. Some people say that we've had dark days in terms of clamping down on what people can say, from the press to the average individual. And we've seen a lot of that, without mentioning any names, in the last 1 month. A lot of clamping down. When you look at the past and you look at now, are we making progress in terms of freedom of expression?
From our point of view, we are not, in the sense that in the past you could say anything you want to say, not in an abusive manner, but in a corrective manner, and you are making your own contribution towards the development of the society. But now, whatever you say, it seems the security outfit now sees that, oh, there's another meaning onto it rather than what you really perceive. And it's when you talk that people can know what's really in your mind, and they can then correct you, and you can then make your own contribution. But I must also say that it's disturbing the way the youth are also going to such bad behavior. Rather than using technology to do great things, to get some innovation to be put in place, they are more and more using technology for negative things in order to acquire money as quickly as possible. And that, perhaps, is the intention of the president when he was saying that we needed to relate to curb this type of behavior.
Now, the political parties, of whom many were active in the run-up to the election, have gone quiet. And I'm not putting you or your party on the spot, Mr. Daria, but I'm just saying that they've gone quiet post the election. But a few of them are still out there speaking. Do you think what we've spoken about so far will affect them negatively one way or the other? The use of social media, especially for those who don't have access to the kind of resources required to use the traditional media to get messages across.
No, I mean, I think for once, we need to be able to see what the advantages of the social media in itself is across the world. It's a global tool. It has many positive outcomes. So sometimes we should not overshadow the positive outcomes, from what the negative outcomes are. Just like she'd mentioned that there are threats. Political parties must be very clear in their language and what they put out there. One of the things that was important for us as a political party when we got into Nigerian politics was to ensure that our message was very clear. Our message was a message that brings about building unity across board, ensuring that we wanted to be able to restore what we thought is lost in Nigeria, which is values, to ensure that we stick to those values. And over a 20-year period, people can actually see that that's what's happening. So the idea is to use that platform, positively and to send those messages across.
But how can you be positive by saying we need change? Take change into your hands now. We need change. Is that something they can pick you up for?
Well, it all depends.
Because apparently,
again, it all depends on there's a fine line between to what extent government itself can take advantage of what you need to say and to what extent you can go. So if you have a government that feels threatened by any chance, you understand, there's a tendency that they might come a bit high-handed, which again must suppress people from speaking freely. I think particularly the speech today by the president, and which many people were latching upon on social media, when you start talking about using decisive measures and those kind of statements, it just takes us back into the military age. Yes. Now, I can't blame him. He's been a military person for all his life, so I'm not expecting him to become democratic, but I expect that the people around him who helped craft that speech must be able to craft that speech to be able to make sure that what is being delivered, comes very democratic and to show he has the intent, probably the right intent and heart, but the delivery has been wrong. And I think that's the problem with this government. They've always had the right intent, but sometimes the communication has always come off wrong completely.
Now, we do have some guests who are joining us from our Abuja studios as well. And it's my pleasure first, as Ijoma has pointed out to me, we're to be joined by Barrister Sadatu Mohammed, who is a legal practitioner and politician, as well as former Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Ojukwu, who is police PRO, former Force PRO. They'll join us in the course of the program. Yes. I would have liked to get their take on this. But while waiting for that, let's move to something else that the president talked about. In fact, I am made to understand 22 paragraphs of the speech were devoted to that. And that's the economy and what has been done so far, where we are and where the government hopes that we will go moving forward over the next 3 or 4 years. He talked about power supply. He talked about the stability of the foreign exchange market. He talked about quite a number of things. Now, again, I will start in no particular order, whoever wants to take it first.
I actually wanted to start with Prof.
Okay.
Simply because for the historical perspective. It was interesting that he talked about the gains of the administration, exiting the recession and all that. But a simple thing like biometrics, how many are we? Listening to the platform today, you heard them say Lagos alone, we're looking at adding 10 million more people. Yeah. Nobody's looking at that aspect of our planning. How do we plan for the economy when we don't even know how many people we're planning for?
Yes, it's disturbing really that we don't even know the real population. If you Google, you find out that about 5-7 people are born within 1 minute, in the country. But the real figures are not really there. If you look at even Ogun State, look at Lagos State, if you see the movement of people from many parts of the country, I don't want to say from the north or from the east, but from many parts of the country, you see that so many people are coming to Lagos, coming to Kano, going to Port Harcourt, without really planning in terms of the various facilities that they have there that will really take care of them and make life really worth living. I think the population census should have been done a long time ago, and we really need to do it much more regularly. I think the last one was in 2006. And with that, that's about 13 years ago. So you can't really plan.
People were even talking about the displacement of people from one zone to the other. How do you count who has run away from Borno, who is now living in Yobe? Sure. So that our dynamics as a people have changed.
Quite a lot.
How do we do that?
Quite a lot. Well, we just have to have a census in place. It's when we have the census in place that we know the demographical details of the country, and we can then plan in terms of their needs. Now we're about, they say about 200 million. Some people say 205 million.
Depends on who is counting.
Depending on
who is estimating.
You know. But if you look at the various things that we need, is it light? Is it food? Is it water? We can't really plan adequately for these people. And there are lots of changes between one state and the other, between one town and the other. And yet, everything is more or less static. If you look at the issue of light, in my own part of the country, maybe 4 or 3 hours in a day. I'm sure that there are many places too that they may even have less. So we really need to know the population and then plan adequately for our needs.
All right. Before we continue, let me bring in now former Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Ojukwu, former Force Public Relations Officer. There he is. Thank you very much for joining us. And seated beside him is Barrister Sadatu Mohammed, who is a lawyer and a politician. Thank you both for joining us on this segment this evening. And I'm going to throw it straight to you, former Commissioner of Police Ojukwu, and that is to switch our discussion now to the link between, we were going to start talking about the economy, which the president devoted quite a bit of time to, and the gains and how to go about it. But seeing you brings back the elephant in the room, which at this point appears to be the situation with security. The president says the government is winning the battle against insecurity, that measures are being taken and that they will continue to take those measures. Do you see evidence of that on ground? Do you see evidence of that on ground?
Well, I can say the nation is winning the battle against insecurity, but we haven't won. So it's still a process. We are not where we used to be. Some years ago, insurgency was very high on the agenda. Insurgents took over many parts of the Northeast. But now the story has changed. Some time ago, there were a lot of cases of kidnappings and armed robberies in some parts of the nation. That has changed. But we haven't really got there. So it's still a work in progress. A lot of work still has to be done. A few days ago, we had people talking about asking for prayers for us to win the war. We haven't got there. everybody has to collaborate with the security forces, Nigeria police, and other law enforcement agencies for us to stop criminals in their tracks and let's reclaim our nation. We haven't got there yet.
Yeah, Mr. Chuka, just to ask, yes, we haven't got there yet, but I don't know how seriously you see where we are with this security matter. Well, if you look at the world report, put together by Human Rights Watch, we've just for 2019 alone, they gauge security for Nigeria as the #1 thing that is our major problem. Even looking at nomadic clashes and the farmer herders thing, that was the picture that comes out, and they've, predicted not very good circumstances for the country. Beyond just saying we should do something differently, what can we really do to show the world that, security is not the way they should now look at us? Security breaches, I mean.
Yes, the concern of Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch also reflects the concern of Nigeria generally, from the president to the least person. Because if you look at our constitution, without security, you cannot have welfare. Issues of economy, road development, infrastructure development, they're all hinged on having the enabling environment which security has to provide. So without security, as Americans will say, you ain't going nowhere yet. We can't make it except we secure the environment. It is true of recent, some years ago, you had insurgency was there, you had issues in the Middle Belt about farmer-herder clashes, and a few issues in the North Central again, in Zamfara, in Kaduna State, bandits ravaging villages, killing people, and creating so much fear all over the places. Abuja Kaduna Road becoming impassable, Lokoja Abuja Road. Such areas, they've actually hyped insecurity in this country. But I do know that a lot of work has been done to stem the tide. A lot of arrests have been made. A good number have been demobilized. A good number of these criminals have been demobilized. And there's a lot of the police and other law enforcement agencies are reaching out to communities. Because without communities cooperating with the police and the security agencies, we cannot make it. So the cooperation is here. People are tired of insecurity. People want to reclaim their lives and go about their lawful businesses. And so they are cooperating because it's also part of our constitution that every Nigerian citizen is obligated to assist law enforcement agencies in maintaining law and order. So Nigerians are waking up to that responsibility and teaming up with the security agencies to make it work. I do believe that we shall get there if we put in more effort.
We'll get others to weigh in on this security matter, because actually the main theme of our discussion today is supposed to be securing the nation, and although that encompasses a whole lot of other things. But at this point, we'll take a short break and then we'll be back. Please stay on with us.